Hi, good evening. This is Ahavah. Today is January 1st, 2024, and it is a brand new year. And although I'm precluded to greet anyone the normal greeting, but I just want to greet everyone a blessed year to come, and hopefully all my apprehensions and anxiety regarding this year are rather misplaced and will not come to pass. I'm making this video like the other videos for a purpose, and I just wanted to more or less talk about a event in June 2022 when I think one of the most painful and sorrowful moment in my life took place, and it was a very um, emotional moment for me. Um, it was something I did not um, expect on a conscious level. And I mentioned this in passing, but I did not discuss this last time because it was still very fresh. And I see no reason for it yet at the time. To start with, I'd like to give a background on this event because every event in my life, there is a background or a context in which it happened. And in order for me to be able to convey the fullness of the event, I have to discuss prior events that are very much related to it. And that's why I bring you all back to 2004, which was many times I referred to it. And this event is related to that also. As I mentioned in my earlier video, in February of 2004, which will now be 20 years next month, I was prompted to go to Israel, and during that time, I also narrated about an event in Abu Ghosh. And a lot of things were made known at the time, which in hindsight, more or less, to a certain degree, much have already been fulfilled. And what was not yet taking place is this dreadful moment, which I always had this fear, even back then, but to manage all this and to be able to function, because sometimes it's so consuming when you dwell on it, and it's like something that's pulling you back and hindering you to move forward when you dwell on it. And 20 years back, you would hardly understand why such things would take place. And as each event takes place, the momentum of my anxiety is actually increased, and that's why, and I was prompted not to dwell in it. And for some reason, I have this consciousness that there are parties that could hear my thoughts. And if I would be dwelling on it, I might influence certain events that would not have happened had I not dwell on it. So that's why I had to focus on certain events that are more or less personal in nature. And normally I dwell on my love life. That's why I train my mind to be consumed by it so that I would not dwell on this event, so that I would have an assurance that I had not in any way influence certain events. From 2004, I have this um, consciousness that there are individuals that too could hear my thoughts. And I don't know if they really could hear my thoughts. And this was more or less aggravated when I was in Guimaras. And as to the reality of that, I have no proof. It's all on my perspective, and that's why I'm qualifying the statement so that whoever would be watching this more or less would have a very um, fair understanding of what I'm conveying or narrating, and the context and my state of mind and how I perceive things. And And that's the main reason. That's why I normally, ever since 2010, I used the events in 2010 and certain events in 2013 just to make sure that I do not dwell on these things. Although I've written or alluded to these events, but they were very much scripted. And I think I wrote a poem of some sort or a letter of some sort alluding to this event. So in 2010, so that's 2004, I was made conscious of all these things. I think I'm very much blessed with the grace of being able to manage these things and not totally be consumed by it. At the start, it was so consuming, especially during 2004. I have Father Antonio's incident, and then all these events coming to full. That's why I was very much emotional at the time, and then understanding why, who am I, what's my significance, relations to all this. Those questions were circling in my mind at that time, and it was very challenging to say the least. However, I know God provided me with this consciousness and guidance, and I just followed it. But sometimes my human nature gives in and creates problems when it happens. And that's why, based on experience, once I'm prompted, I always uh, abide by it as much as possible to avoid the repetition or repeat of previous incidents. So basically, 2004 passed when all these things came to my consciousness. Then in 2010, I returned to Israel with the hope that whatever it will be, it would be not happening. And I was very much inspired by the developments happening at that time with the Obama administration. And my return there coincides to his return to his visit actually to Israel, if I'm not mistaken. And the main, the normally, and like in 2004, my purpose in my visit is to pray. That was basically my role in it. And at times, I would be asking myself, am I doing certain or contributing something to anything, because I'm there, and you don't see the fruits of what you're doing. Unlike when you're doing something tangible, you could see you finish something. But me, my purpose, even in 2004, is to pray for, um, now that I've discussed already in my previous video, for the house of Israel. As I mentioned in my video, when this happened in 2004, I do not quite understand why, you know, why me, something like that. And yet, as the events happened, like in 2010, I returned there, and although I did not say that in so many ways, but that's my purpose. I wanted to, because as I've experienced and saw in 2004, the difficulty that the Palestinian group have been experiencing, and also the fear that I see in the remnant. I refer to them as the remnant of the of those who were exiled, who still, by reason of history and by providence, have not uh, converted or have remained practicing what was practiced before the destruction of the Second Temple. So I refer to them as the remnant, because the remnant group, um, that is to highlight that the importance of them, because under my that under as far as I am concerned or has been made conscious of, um, they their existence is very much crucial to the fulfillment of God's will, and it's not. That's why events that took place at the turn of the century, 19, after World War One, actually enabled all these events to materialize, which were spoken, as far as I believe, and as I was made conscious of, written in scripture. And a lot of the evangelicals, the eschatological understanding also, more or less recognize this. The Catholic or the Latin eschatological understanding, some quarters do have that, but I guess because they are Latin and also Greek, more or less they have this adverse relations with the remnant, and a lot of monarchs actually in the Middle Ages were very, very adverse to their existence, and they were expelled, they were forced to convert, and so on. And so many things have been done to them, which by providence they've endured, and because there is a purpose for their endurance, because the remnant represents, in my understanding, because as you all know, during the first temple, the they represent the Judea, the two tribes that actually remained, the Benjamin and the Judah tribe, and the 10 tribes, as a lot of these YouTube videos have been discussing, were lost because those were the tribes that did not recognize the son of Solomon as their rightful monarch, and therefore the house of Israel was, divided. And ever since that time, the house was never again whole. And that's why it's very important that they endure. I do not want to dwell on that because that's not the main issue of this video. But simply saying it, the promise cannot be fulfilled unless they are there. And that's why any theological understanding contrary to this, which is very much spoken about by St. Paul in his writings, that they are an integral part, and the fullness of salvation, I think that's how St. Paul wrote about it. The fullness of salvation cannot be attained unless the remnant is eventually assimilated. When I say assimilated, they would more or less attain the understanding that they need in order for them to accept the reality of faith that more or less they should have done or accepted during the time of the second temple before the destruction, or the faith that was preached or brought forth by the followers of Yeshua. So basically, that's where I'm kind of going to something that is a little bit off, but it's related to this. And that's basically why I am prompted to go to, even in 2004, I don't know why me, but that's basically what I've been praying for ever since in 2004. Now, um, and in 2010, the issue with the Palestinian group, and the remnant. So I saw the fear that the remnant has, and it's very much manifested in their policies and their interaction with the Palestinian group. And I could not fault them because obviously it is a proactive action to proactive action to preempt any harm that may be inflicted upon them, and that's why I cannot blame them in so many ways. That's why my difficulty was the it's like a double dagger hating me, because there's the fear and there's this hate, and the fear creates the hate in so many ways. But if you would look at and see how the remnants are, they're basically very much Yeshua in so many ways. And that's why there's a difficulty in understanding why there was this anti-Semitism within the ecclesiastical community, when in fact, when you see most of their precepts, most of their practices were practices by Yeshua and his followers at the time. So I don't know where it came. Some say because they are blaming the remnant for the crucifixion, but um, why blame the entire race when in fact the hierarchy at the time was the one was involved in the and based on the scripture, the New Testament, you would see that there was political and social dimension to the events surrounding the crucifixion of Yeshua. And that's kind of my challenge, actually. A challenge to me is to how to reconcile where the animosity, I guess because they were persecuted, the followers of Yeshua during the early stage of the ecclesial formation was very much, as I said, persecuted. It's very much narrated in Acts, and the best person to use as evidence of that persecution is Saul, or Saint, who eventually became Saint Paul. So basically, that's how I was feeling at that time, and I was praying and asking the Lord, how can they be able to coexist, and how can they be able to see that they are in so many ways part and parcel of one house in so many ways. And that's why the pain, I couldn't understand why I'm experiencing such a sorrowful and pain in seeing both uh, the actions of the remnant and also of the Palestinian group. Uh, it the pain is not it's physical, but it's not coming from a physical origin. It's manifesting physically because my emotional faculties is affected by it, and my conscious self is asking, why am I feeling this? I don't even know these people. When in 2004 I hardly even converse with them, and yet when I see the difficulty that they are experiencing in 2004 and in 2008 and 10, and also the measures that the remnant are adopting in order to protect themselves, is very, very sorrowful in so many ways, and which makes me feel that how could this be? So basically, that's kind of the background why I'm there and always going there. It's to pray for them. And I was after 2004, I was very happy in so many ways, elated in so many ways when I came back in 2010. Because in 2004, and when I visited the West Bank, which is the Bethlehem area, it was totally very much a deserted place. And when I came back in 2008 and then a lot has changed already, and that was there was this joy that engulfed me, seeing most of the stores are open, they're doing very well and everything. Unlike, I, you could see they themselves who live in that area could see or know the difference of how they were in prior to 2004 and 2010, when I was able to return there during the ordination of Bishop Shomali. It was at that time when I had to walk, and that's the time that the narrative that I mentioned regarding the presence of those who reside there happened, and that's basically why I'm there. And I just followed and everything, and I was able to stay. And in 2010, my decision was to go there and to wait until to pray for the peace between the two. When Because my understanding is that if these two people, the remnant and the Palestinian group, are in parity already, then more or less they would be able to assimilate together, because the tension is because of the fear, and the fruit of that fear are this very restrictive and very discriminatory policies, and it's very intrusive. I experienced it also several times when I went back to Israel. You'd be asked, and I understand that is to avoid entry of any threat to the peace and order within the state of Israel. So 2010, however, in 2010, it was short-lived. As you all know, if you research in 2010, it fell apart rather, the efforts to at least have this arrangement of the Palestinian people would have, or group, I don't want to call them people, they are a group only with respect to me, in my eyes and in my consciousness and in everything that I believe in. I only look at them as a group because they are part and parcel of the entire house of Israel. And the state of Israel now is only a precursor to the house of Israel, because it represents only the remnant. And the house of Israel encompasses um, both the Gentiles, the remnant, and all those who, by reason of their lineage, are part of the house of Israel. When I say lineage, because as you all know, history was not very fair to the remnants. Um, that's why when you study their history, you would feel this gratitude to Hashem, because in spite of all the things that they had gone through, they were able to endure and still remain as they were before the first temple, the second temple, and now by Hashem and by Hashem's hand, the third temple. And it's making me emotional because I don't know where it's coming from. It's coming from a consciousness within me that you have the Holocaust, you have the expulsion, you have the discrimination that they had endured, the forced conversion that they had to. And that's why there are a lot. That's why when I refer by their lineage, because I believe they shouldn't be faulted if they're now confessing or practicing a different faith other than the faith that they should be in because of who they are and because of their lineage. Because and that's where that is coming from, that statement. So you have the remnant, you have those so by lineage, and by lineage belongs to the house by blood in so many ways. And now that modern technology has been developed, the DNA and a lot of research are being done in so many ways. It's correlating the consciousness that was made known to me, and that's where that is coming from, the by lineage. Now the remnant, the by lineage, which is meaning by their by blood, and then you have the Gentiles who are in so many ways, as a lot of church um, fathers or theologians, they view the church as the expression of Israel also, and the Gentiles are adopted by love in so many ways. Because my understanding is that there is only one covenant, okay, and although a lot of theologians disagree with me because of their leanings, but this is what I was made conscious of. There can only be one covenant because there is only one God. I know there are passages that are mentioned in Jeremiah and certain passages in the Old Testament, but that is only my understanding there. It's referring to the same covenant. It's just that it is expressed in a more different way. It is uh, because if you treat there are two covenants, then I I the thought that God is somewhat it's hard to explain. I'm not a theologian, so I just that's what's made known to me, that there is only one covenant, and that's why there's only one salvation, and that fullness of salvation is only attainable through the house of Israel. That's basically what my understanding is, and that's why it is very important that the house of Israel is formed or reconstituted again, and and this is where everything comes from. And the house of Israel, the promise of salvation cannot be um, fulfilled if the house of Israel is not uh, reconstituted in so many ways. The church may claim that they are the house of Israel, but St. Paul was very much clear to with his writing as early as after during his time. He already prophesied about it, that the fullness of salvation can only be attained when the house is, because the salvation is through the house of Israel. And that's why it's very important. Outside the house, and there is no salvation. And that's why this is the, I think Yeshua emphasized this also. I'm not too good in quoting the exact verse, but I know it's there in the Bible. So he mentioned this, and he was very much emphasizing this, you know, and the prophets are very much emphasizing this, and even St. Paul. I think this is more or less the theological thought of the Pharisees, which St. Paul is one of them, and that's why his theological thinking is very much influenced by his Pharisee affiliation. So that's basically why I am there, to pray for the house of Israel. And even back then, I was very much aware of the improbability of it coming to pass, because you have look at the Christian churches, you just have to go to the Holy Sepulchre and see the disunity therein. It's so heartening also. And but when I'm there, I'm very much happy. So anyway, seeing them, you know, and feeling their presence, and it's very enriching. That's why there's this part of me that would always want to see them, to be among them, and just to feel that presence. So basically, that's why I go there. And from 2004, then now in 2010, I had to leave in 2010. It was an event during Pentecost, although I do not want to discuss that in detail because it might um, unearth or bring into the discussion things that I myself would have no reason to discuss it. But basically, it was Pentecost of 2010. Because my decision when I went there in 2010 was just to be there already and to pray, because a part of me knows that I must be there and my place is there, and my task is what I've just explained, to pray for the reconstitution and unification of all these things, you know. And it's only now that I'm able to discuss this fully because of certain events that have already transpired. However, in 2010, there was this event that prompted me to leave. It was a very difficult moment because I do not want to go. Although my life there compared to my life here is very much um, challenging. Here I'm very much comfortable in so many ways. There, because of the type of work that I was in order to stay there, it's very physical in so many ways. So I really had to adjust again, like in 2004, I adjusted again in 2010. But it was enriching on emotional level. I discovered my maternal and my emotional side, taking care of those children. Although that wasn't the reason was something else. And I was hoping that the event that I feared that would make me leave would not happen. However, it happened in Pentecost 2010. And it was one of the most sorrowful moments also of my life because I already knew at the time that I had to leave. And after may, being made aware of that event, and I went to the church, which is managed by the Franciscans, which is also in Mount Zion, which is the other part of the upper room. And there I cried. I I can't remember if I cried that sorrowful. I think it's much sorrowful a little when I cried regarding Father Antonio when I begged the Lord for his healing. But when I was in Mount Zion, the church or the community beside the upper room, I cried because I know that I would be leaving soon. And I prayed to Holy Father St. James the Great, um, that that event would not come to pass because I really wanted to stay there and I don't want to go back to the Philippines anymore because I know I should be there because I have to pray for the intentions of my person, my essence in so many ways. And yet I knew already that if this event will happen, I have no choice. That's why when it happened, I just stepped out and then went to the chapel because it was just but you cannot go. There's no, I think there's an opening, but they cannot open it. So you have to go outside the upper room, go down and then to the Mount Zion church. And there I cried. I really cried. And so I knew already at the time that I would be leaving. And there were several friars who was there. And I do not know why they're crying too. I guess perhaps they know, perhaps they could hear what I'm saying and praying, and that's why they're also crying in so many ways. It was a very difficult moment. Even now, I'm still emotional because I did not want to go. And I prayed and prayed. The answer is that I have to go, and me, I'm stubborn, but I obey in so many ways. I'm like the second child in the parable, as like the first rather, the one that said no, but or struggled, but eventually obeyed. So I already knew that. And it was a very emotional moment. And the entire chapel could hear my or feel my emotion. And I knew then that that was me, and every event that took place, I knew already that I would be leaving. So that was me. But I made a promise, and that's where this event in June 2022 is connected. That is what I asked and prayed, that if the event that was made known to me to 2004 would come to pass, that I would be able to have the opportunity to return and to do what I can do in so many ways. Um, and that's the context why June 2 is very important, because of the events that was happening. I was made conscious that the event that I feared is very near, and I have to do something about it. I have to have the resources to be able to go there. And lo and behold, I had the resources, and that's why my challenge was to balance it, because um, my concern is when I leave here, the land where I was born and the people that actually I was born in, I fear that, you know, um, certain events might happen, and my departing here would more or less um, bring about that in so many ways. And that's why the challenge was there. I was kind of, thinking I'll just visit and not remain there and go try to find a way to go back and forth in so many ways, because I know I have to be there and I have to, and that's why my consciousness already is that I should be there, and in a way I am stronger there, not in a physical sense, but in a more profound way. And that was the challenge, actually. That was the dilemma. Having known that the day that I feared was coming near, and it is a promise I made that yes, I be, because of the event on Pentecost, I have to, but I will return. That is, that's a promise I made. And because the reason why I made that promise is to be able, in so many ways, prevent through the acts that was made known to me, and that's the reason why I had to. And because at the time it was the first worry, actually, the pandemic is something that I did not foresee or know about in so many ways. I did not, because it's I perhaps it's based on the news item, it's a man-made scenario. I did not foresee that. That's why when it happened, I was very much frustrated because it's hindering everything, the progress of the country, because the past president, Mr. Duterte, even before he became president or even before he was in the limelight, I already knew that he would be someone very important to this country and would play a significant role. And that's why when I was in Greenbelt, I was praying about it, and a lot of frustration was being expressed by a lot of sectors in the Philippines regarding the administration of Mr. Aquino. And I don't know why, because I think he was very vindictive. And in a way, his policies are all geared towards persecution of those who more or less did not follow the tune that they had wanted, and that is the uh, then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. She has always had a very, among all the presidents of this country, she is I refer to as the daughter of the East. I was inspired to call her that. I was in the States when that happened, and my worry was back then that she would not run. And that's why when the Hello Garci happened, I know it's not the issue here. I'm just a kind of segue to it. But basically, that's the challenge, because when I left in 2010, the Aquino administration or Aquino Abon, and I was very much, um, how do you put it, worried and concerned. And lo and behold, that's why when Sister Norma, one of the sisters of Daughters of Charity, asked me, informed me about Aquino winning the election, I was very much indifferent, because for some reason, I was very much, if perhaps if I didn't leave, the president would have been the richest man in the country right now. He was very much there, but the problem is sympathy came in. And based on the track record of Mr. Aquino when he was a senator, it is not promising. And that's why I base it there. And I think he won because of the sympathy votes. And, you know, the Filipino people are very emotional people, and their decisions sometimes or often, I think, are influenced by their emotion. And I think that's the main reason why Mr. Aquino won the election. So that's basically why I was kind of reluctant. You know, I had the COVID-19 not happened. My expectation was the growth rate would more or less be maintained, and by 2030, the Philippines would more or less be um, nearing a highly developed or developed country already. However, COVID um, restrained that. And in all honesty, I did not know about that COVID, so I was a bit upset. But with regards, going back to the issue of the event, as early as March 25, 2020, I was already worried about it because I was made conscious already. That's why my efforts to return started there. Actually, I've asked a person who is very much not close, but connected to me in so many ways. I asked for his assistance, so that was March. From then on, my focus was my return because I feared that the event that I have to make the necessary actions to bring such a promise into fulfillment, or at least give the uh, uh, exert effort to ensure that the possibility of fulfilling that promise is there. So that was March 20. And then Yom Kippur came. I was a little bit worried about that also during that time. I think had there been no pandemic, the attack that was made last October would have taken place 2 years earlier. I was always fearful of that event, and that's why I said to myself, I have to do all these things. So I prayed and asked, and everything was falling to place. And then I resolved the issue regarding my transition to becoming a woman, and that was really the difficulty, the reconciliation, you know. And but basically that was over. That was resolved already, and that's why everything was gearing towards. That's why after the surgery, and then after the surgery, I would be working, and then by the time June, I would already be more or less regular in my work. It was the target, and then I did not expect the issue that my surgery would create in the office that I was working in. I did not anticipate that. That's why, but nonetheless, everything was in order already. I've already made those arrangements already. But my expectation was that by because by April I've already been regular. So April, May, June. So I have 2 months of securing the permit. It was basically a visit only. That was the resolution because I'm worried of the repeat when I departed for Israel in 2010. That if I leave, the similar events will take place, and that's why my the the resolution is that I would visit only and spend, I think, 2 weeks there just to pray. And then that was my plan that every year from that moment on, I would be returning. And each year, 2 months, and then come back here, and then 2 months, then as my work allows me to, because I never expected I'd be returning to teaching. And my expectation is because in teaching, you won't be able to leave unless it's break, school or semestral break or Christmas break. So when I returned back to teaching, my plan was to spend 2 months there and then back here, going back and forth. Because that was the resolution that I came up with to balance everything. However, my situation at the office happened. So I'm really very affected by the incident, and I hope that the decision will come out already because it's already almost 2 years this March, and there's nothing yet. I hope those who would hear this would do something about it. So basically, that was the thing. And then that was my plan. And I plan to stay there um, I think 2 weeks or three. I forgot the time frame, but I'll be going somewhere else and then coming back again. So what happened was, and also and what happened was is that I had a problem with the office, and also I haven't returned yet to teaching back then. I was on a part-time basis. So more or less, I do not have any contractual obligation with respect to my teaching. It's only during the semester. And then the semester concluded already, and therefore, by the time it starts, which was September at that time, I would be already back. So that was my plan. And that was, and from every year, I would, depending on the availability of I would do in return there because of this event, of what I feared. And so the issue at the office that took place, everything's already set. It was all done in January, February, and I eventually went. And it was a very I did not inform anyone except one of the sister that I met in 2004, who more or less we had already we know each other already. So I informed her and actually bought stuff for her. And we were talking to each other. Then I was so excited already. And because I'm returning after what, 12 years since I left. And the main reason of my return is that to pray for that event, and that terrible time. I'm used to the interrogation, but there was something very weird with the event. That's why it's so heavy back then. I was in shock in so many ways because I was expecting everything to be. Yes, I am expecting the interrogation because how many times I've been there and I've always been interrogated, and I was hoping that I would not be interrogated, but I don't know what happened. And like before, it was very intrusive and very, so I just took it, and then all of a sudden, because normally after that, they will give back your passport, and then you're allowed to enter. And I've experienced that. I was there sitting, and then all of a sudden, the immigration personnel or whoever is in the office would come out, give me my passport, and then you can go, something like that. That was in 2010 also. And in 2010, they were, it's very similar to what happened. It's just that it was very weird. I knew already that there was a problem because um, the time. Normally, it didn't take that long. And I was very much worried already. But when I was in the airplane, it's different returning back now. It's something very, very profound. And I was there already, and the only thing that was keeping me is those personnel. Actually, when I gave my passport, my reservation and everything, and I do not know where that idea came from, that they think that I am a sex worker of some sort, because based on their analysis, I don't know, because I don't know how I know. I just I don't understand them, but for some reason I could sense something is wrong. Perhaps because I'm a transgender, and that's the reason why. I don't know. I cannot understand what happened. But it was so emotional for me because I was almost there. I arrived in the afternoon, and I was very much excited. And because after that trip, I would be going to France. But the problem is, I did not get the visa. So, more or less, I would be staying there all throughout. So, I would be, instead of 2 weeks, I would just, my plan is to rebook the ticket for the total duration of my trip, because my plan was 2 weeks there, and I would go to France and then certain places and then be back there and spend another. All in all, it was a month. That was the plan. And what was so saddening is that I don't know, but I could feel the officers, when they were sad also, perhaps because they pity me or something. But I never forget the feeling. That's why it took me a while. It's a very painful moment for me. And I was there in the airport, and then the sun was setting. And what's in my mind is the event that prompted me to go there. And that's why I said, whoever is responsible for me not being able to be admitted, and whatever comes to pass is on them, something like that. And I just watch the sun set and darkness comes, and I wanted to cry, but I was in a shock. The only time I cried was when I arrived already back, because I was in a state of shock. And that's why I couldn't talk about it back then. My only concern actually is the event, and that's why now that it happened, it's more painful because I do not know if I would be able to do what I'm supposed to do, whether my prayers or would bear fruit that would enable the event from not happening. But what I know is that it happened, and my only it's sorrowful because I was almost there. I was almost there. I prayed and cried, um, on, cried in a way, plead actually, that cried, pleaded. hoping against all hope that there would be personalities who would be able to hear me. I talked to the sister that I was communicating before. What gave me that there was a problem is actually her call, because she called me before boarding or when I was in Dubai, and her voice is, there's something, because there is, I don't know, perhaps some information was provided her that would, because when you talk, that's the thing, when you talk, there is this intonation that would give way or give some indication on your state of mind in so many ways. It's hard to explain, but I'm sensitive to that. And based on our conversation, because she called me, I already felt something from her call, the way that she talked to me and what she told me. But I brushed it aside. Mm, my you, I don't want to ruin my excitement of being returning. And then when I talked to her again, when I was there already, and that made me feel that there was, for one reason or another, there is something that is, because even before I arrived, I had that feeling based on the conversation, and I knew something is not right. I don't know if my suspicion has any semblance of reality, but that is how I perceived it at that time. And when the plane was over Israel already, it's more or less like Compostela at the time. What's so weird now is that, because before, when we entered the airspace of, perhaps it's my excitement only that created this condition manifesting physically, but I'm just trying to relate the event, because the you see in the map in the airplane where the airplane is. So when it entered the airspace, I felt this feeling, and it never left until I am outside the. It's similar to 2004. It's just it's more evident in so many ways. And I was so happy and everything. Although I did not give any attention to what entered my mind when I was in Dubai after the call of the sister. And and it was a very painful moment, and what is so painful also is seeing the event that you feared taking place, the destruction, the death, and the impact. This event will isolate the state of Israel, or the remnant in so many ways. And there would come a time when even the United States would be unable to extend help because it's preoccupied also. And this is the reason why I wanted to go there. And perhaps there are other personalities that thinks otherwise. I cannot this I was made conscious not to speak about my purpose going there, it should always be kept. And that's how I was made conscious of everything that I do must be known only to me and must not be spoken about or discussed with anyone for adulation or for commendation. No? 2004, 2010, my purpose is always the house of Israel and to labor for it. And although parties have conflicting interests, I know a day will come when it will eventually manifest. What is existing already would manifest physically and be made known on this plane, a platform or realm in so many ways. And my only frustration and sorrow is that I'm here. I should be there in so many ways. I'm praying for, but I guess the cactus, Pandora's box has been opened in so many ways. And the storm has already set in, so we have to breeze through it, you know. And my only consolation is that the house of Israel will triumph. They will be united again, like in the days of the patriarch and King David. And the fullness of the promise and blessing to the house of Israel would be manifested as prophesied. As to how or how much I would be involved in that is something time can only tell. I'm here, and it's so frustrating and it's so painful because it's 90 days already. And had I been able to enter and do my stuff, so to speak, I don't know if it would have made a difference, but only God knows. And that's why my words on that very day, when I was barred from entering, whoever was responsible for that, all this is upon us, or if there are a group of people upon them. And seeing and knowing that it is coming to pass makes it more painful. For in a way, I did what I could do. I was And now, as I said, Pandora's box has been opened, and it will be very difficult to close it. I'm still very emotional about it, but that's why I'm making this already. It's time to let go and commend as I had already and allow the Lord to be the one. It will be difficult to close Pandora's box. And I don't know if I would be able to return. It doesn't make it any easy or easier to know that what you feared has come to pass. And I'm worried also. That's why I made that video regarding the relationship of Islam to on the Philippine government's relation to China. Everything was triggered when Trump failed to win the election. My writings have already been made then, and and I see now the possibility that he might not be able to run. That's why, for one reason or another, I have this consciousness that he would not be able to. But if he would be able to run, then he would win. And that's why when he won, I was so happy because it was made conscious to me that he would win. And the time that he won, I knew that Israel is safe and the world is safe. Although a lot of people doesn't like him because of his personality, but he's a man of peace. And that's why the moment Biden took office, that's the time I knew everything would come to pass. And I've made it known also through my writings. I don't know if he would be able to run. If he would be able to run, then he would win. I am precluded to go to the United States. my friend one informed me already, but I cannot go there until I don't know why, because I'm precluded to return to the United States. And I just hope those who world leaders would work for peace. Although it will be a long shot, and I see the efforts of his enemies now to keep him out of the race. And perhaps that's why it's not that he didn't win, he wasn't able to run. I guess that's it. That is one of the most painful moments in my life, knowing consciously. That's why when October 7 happened, it was something. I guess these are all in the hands of those persons who are responsible for keeping me from entering. And the destruction and the deaths and the gruesome acts that was perpetuated is something that during my lifetime I have not heard of, except during the ISIS era. But the ISIS is very much not concerned, did not involve the remnant and the Palestinian group. So I couldn't believe that they would be engaging in such acts. I guess hate can really consume people and fuel them or prompt them to do acts totally against being human, being a human person. So I guess that's it. Today is January 1, the feast of the solemnity rather of Mary, the Mother of God. And I hope that you all would pray for me and that I'd be able to let go of all the negativity, not only of this matter, but also of the other matters in my life, and be able to return back there, um, and be able to implement what I have resolved to spend, go back and forth to fulfill my obligations. It is an obligation that is imposed upon by who I am, and that's why I hope that those who would be hearing this would be able to pray for its fulfillment, and if they are in a position to make it a reality, I hope they would work for its fulfillment. But